My ex-wife drank away our son's college fund. She laughed when I told her I was thinking of going back to school. An actual, gut-deep, sarcastic laugh. Silas, you can't even finish a book, let alone a degree. Be serious. Then she sipped her wine and turned back to her phone like I was a passing breeze, not her husband. My name is Silas. I'm 38 now. I used to be a construction foreman before everything in my life collapsed like the half-finished home I couldn't afford to keep. At the time of that conversation with Abai, my now ex-wife, I was 34 and barely hanging on. We'd been married for 11 years. We met in our early 20s, fresh out of high school. She was this sharp, opinionated, fiery woman who made everyone in a room look her way. I was quieter, a little awkward, more of an overthinker. But I worked hard, always did. We had our son, Marcus, when we were 23. I never wanted anything more than to be a good dad and reliable partner. But Abai changed. Or maybe she didn't change. Maybe life just revealed more of who we were. The stress started piling on. Bills, her mom's health issues, Marcus getting older, us still renting a too-small place and watching our friends buy homes. I thought if I just worked harder, if I just put my head down, we'd get through it. Abai started drinking more around that time. At first, it was just wine on the weekends. There was wine every night. Then bottles went missing fast. When I brought it up, she called me controlling. She said I was acting like her dad. Said maybe if I made more money, she wouldn't need to escape so much. Still, I stuck it out. We had a plan. We were saving for Marcus College. Every side job I took, every overtime shift, every skipped dinner out, it went into that fund. That account was my anchor. Even if Abai and I were unraveling, at least we were united in doing right by our son. Or so I thought. The day everything cracked open started like any other. It was a Tuesday, raining like hell. I got home after a 14-hour shift and saw Abai sitting on the couch, wine in hand, looking pale. Not angry, not smug, just hollow. She said, Silas, don't freak out. It's not what you think. That sentence will never not signal disaster. Turns out she'd emptied Marcus College fund, drained it down to the cent. Over the last year, bit by bit. Why, was all I could say. My throat was tight. I remember the sound of the rain hitting the roof more than I remember my own voice. I needed it, she said, almost defiantly. I was drowning, Silas. You just kept working. And I was alone in this miserable life. I needed something to feel better. So yeah, I dipped into it. I meant to pay it back. But she hadn't. Not a penny. Over $38,000 gone. Bottles. Bars. Maybe a few spa weekends she never told me about. The numbness hit me before the rage did. Then the guilt. Then the panic. I saw my son's future unraveling, and I didn't even know where to start to fix it. I left that night. I slept in my truck outside a 24-hour gym because I didn't know where else to go. That silence, sitting alone with my thoughts and the hum of the highway nearby, was more brutal than any fight we'd ever had. For weeks, we barely spoke. She avoided me, then blamed me. If you'd been present, if you'd noticed, maybe you could have helped me sooner. I filed for divorce 6 weeks later. It wasn't dramatic. She didn't fight it. She didn't even seem to care. She was always one glass deep, maybe more. Marcus was 15 then. I didn't tell him the truth at first. I couldn't. How do you say to your kid, your college money's gone because your mom has a drinking problem and I didn't see it coming? So I just said, things change, buddy, but I'll figure it out. I moved into a friend's basement. One mattress, one desk, and a mini fridge. I started selling off things I didn't need, old tools, my Xbox, even my record player. Every extra dollar went into a new savings account with Marcus' name on it. But inside, I was wrecked. I'd always prided myself on being steady, dependable, but I felt like a failure. A man who couldn't even protect his kid's future. I was embarrassed, ashamed. I stopped calling old friends. I turned down invites. I kept my head down and stayed quiet. That's when the idea of going back to school came up again. Quietly. At first, it was just a passing thought. But one night, after working late, I saw this ad online for a local community college's night program in construction management. I stared at it for an hour, and I remembered what Abai said. You can't even finish a book. Maybe that was the spark I needed. So I enrolled. Night classes part-time. I kept working days, then raced across town to take classes with kids half my age. It was humbling. My first essay got a D+. I almost quit right then, but I didn't. I stuck it out. I relearned how to learn. I studied on weekends while Marcus played video games on my laptop. He'd peek over and say, "You doing homework too, Dad?" I'd smile and say, "Trying to keep up with you." Over the next year and a half, I changed. Slowly, quietly. My confidence didn't come back all at once. it came in moments. A professor telling me I had potential. A project I led at work getting high praise. Marcus hugging me one day and saying, "You seem happier now, Dad." Meanwhile, Abby's life went the other way. She lost her job, then got another one and lost that too. Her drinking got worse. Marcus stopped wanting to go to her place. He told me she once forgot to pick him up from practice. She didn't even remember agreeing to it. I started noticing her messages again. Random ones. "Hope you're well. Marcus said you're taking classes? That's cool. I'm trying to get better." I didn't respond. Not because I hated her, but because I had nothing left to say. It took me 3 years to finish that degree. I walked across the stage at 37 years old, and Marcus was in the front row, clapping louder than anyone. I didn't cry then, but later that night I did. Alone, in my small apartment. Just a few tears of relief. The job offers came not long after. Better pay, better hours. I accepted a role as a site manager with a mid-sized company that actually gave a damn about its people. For the first time in years, I wasn't surviving, I was living. And that's when a buy called. Not a text, not an email. A full-on phone call at 10:27 p.m. I almost didn't answer, but something in me said, "Pick up." Her voice was soft, slurred a little. She asked how I was. Said she heard from Marcus that I'd finished school and gotten a new job. She told me she was proud of me. Then she said the words that hit me sideways. "I think I made the biggest mistake of my life, Silas." There was a pause. I didn't rush to fill it. She added, "I was so selfish, so blind. You try to be everything for us, and I just broke it all. I don't know if there's ever a way to fix things, but I just needed you to know. I'm sorry." I looked out the window. The city lights blurred a little. Then I said, gently but firmly, "Thank you for saying that, Abai. I mean it, but I'm not the same person anymore. And honestly, I don't think you are either. Some things you can't just undo." She was quiet. Then she said, "I know. I just wanted you to hear it." I told her I hoped she'd keep trying. For Marcus. For herself. I wished her well, and we ended the call. I didn't feel triumphant, just peaceful, because sometimes vindication isn't loud. It's not slamming doors or dramatic scenes. Sometimes it's just quietly rebuilding your life brick by brick until you look up one day and realize you're standing on solid ground again. After that phone call, I didn't hear from Abai for a while, and I didn't expect to. I think she just needed to get that weight off her chest. Maybe it was part of her recovery. Maybe it was guilt. I didn't analyze it too hard. That was the season of my life where silence started to feel like peace instead of punishment. No more late-night arguments. No emotional minefields when I walked through the front door. No pit in my stomach wondering what kind of mood she'd be in. Marcus came to live with me full-time the following year. I didn't push for it. He just stopped wanting to go to his mom's place. The last straw for him was when he found her passed out with a lit cigarette on the couch. Thank God it hadn't burned the place down. He called me that night in a panic, and I drove over. I saw her, mouth slightly open, ash on her shirt, the room filled with stale smoke, and I felt nothing. Not hate, not anger, just a heavy, tired kind of nothing. She woke up as I helped Marcus pack a duffel bag. Slurred something like, "You think you're better than me?" I didn't answer. I just walked my son out. That was 2 years ago. Since then, my life has become something I'm proud of, something I built from the ground up. I moved out of that one-bedroom apartment into a modest 2-bedroom condo. Nothing fancy, but clean, bright, and quiet. I even carved out a little office space where I could freelance on the side, project consulting and blueprint reviews. I didn't rush into dating again. I wasn't interested in dragging anyone into my healing process. I had too much to untangle inside of me first. Resentment, insecurity, and a lingering fear that maybe I'd always be second-guessed, laughed at, or underestimated. But over time, that fear faded. A woman I worked with, Julia, asked me to coffee after a team meeting one day. I almost said no. My default setting had become keep my head down and keep it moving. But something about her steadiness, her calm presence, convinced me to say yes. That coffee turned into dinner, which turned into weekend walks, which slowly turned into trust. She didn't pry. She didn't try to fix me. She just showed up, listened, laughed at my dumb jokes, and treated me like a man worth showing up for. The first time I told her about Abai and the college fund, I braced for judgment. But Julia just looked at me and said, "You did what a real father does. You kept going." That sentence stuck with me for days. Marcus was doing better too. His grades improved. He started applying to schools again, even though the financial pressure hadn't completely gone away. I picked up extra shifts and continued putting money aside, quietly, consistently. One weekend, as I was helping him draft an essay for one of the state colleges, he paused mid-sentence and looked up at me. Dad, yeah. Do you ever regret not leaving earlier? I sat with that for a minute. Sometimes, I said, but if I had left sooner, I might not have learned what I needed to. I think some lessons take a while to teach you what kind of person you want to be. He nodded slowly, like that made more sense than he could put into words. The real turning point came the day I got invited to speak at a local high school about career paths in construction management. Just a quick 30-minute talk. Nothing fancy, but standing in front of those students, talking about going back to school at 35, rebuilding after setbacks, and learning not to let other people's doubts define your worth. It hit me how far I'd come. After the talk, a kid came up and said, "You sound like someone who didn't give up on himself." That night, I got home and found an email from a guy. Subject line, "I saw your name in the paper." It turns out a local paper had done a little write-up on the school talk and my story. One of those ordinary people doing something meaningful kind of things. Her email was short. "Silas, I saw the article. I didn't know you were doing all that. I know I said this once before, but I'm sorry. Truly, I messed everything up. I'm still going to meetings. I'm working part-time at the bookstore now, trying to stay clean. I just wanted to say I'm proud of you. You're a great dad. I wish I'd seen it sooner." There was no ask, no fishing, just a message. I didn't reply, not out of bitterness, not out of cruelty, just because I didn't need to. I printed that email out and put in a folder I keep tucked away in my closet. The same folder that holds Marcus's birth certificate, my degree, and the first check I ever got from a consulting job. It felt like closure in a sentence. A year later, Marcus got accepted into 2 schools. One offered a partial scholarship. The other, his dream school, didn't. But we made it work. I took out a small loan. He applied for grants. And we made it work. On move-in day, as we carried boxes up to his dorm, he looked at me and said, "You did it, Dad." I shook my head. "No, we did it. But yeah, it feels good, doesn't it?" That night, I sat in my quiet condo, poured a glass of water, and just breathed. Not in celebration, not in mourning, just breathing like someone who's come out the other side. I don't think a bi is a villain. I think she was lost, overwhelmed, and made selfish choices that hurt the people who loved her most. She has to live with that. And I don't wish her pain. I genuinely hope she gets better. For her own sake. But I also know this. Just because someone regrets what they did to you doesn't mean they get a seat in your healed life. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a comeback or a confrontation. Sometimes it's simply not needing either. The fall after Marcus started college was quieter than I'd expected. Not sad, just still. The kind of quiet that sneaks up on you after years of emotional noise. The kind where you sit in your own kitchen, drink your coffee, and realize no one's waiting to criticize or dismiss you for dreaming too big or too late. I remember one morning in particular. It was early October, leaves just started to turn. I was packing a small care box from Marcus, snacks, a pair of socks he liked, and a little handwritten note that said, "Proud of you every single day." I folded the letter and stopped, because I remembered writing a letter like that once. Early in our marriage, before everything broke. Back when I still believed that love could fix anything if you just worked hard enough. But love without respect? That's a slow death. I'd come to understand that the hard way. It wasn't that a bi never loved me. I think in her own way she did. But she never respected me. Not as a partner. Not as a father. Not as a man trying to do right by his family. And once respect goes out the door, love doesn't last long. It mutates, turns sharp, becomes a weapon instead of a refuge. Around Thanksgiving, I got a message from her again. This one was different. "Hey, Marcus said you won't be doing the big dinner this year since he's staying on campus. Would it be okay if I drop something off for you? Just something small. No strings." I stared at the message for a long time. I hadn't seen her in almost a year, and I was okay with that. But something about the wording, "no strings," made me curious. Or maybe generous. Or maybe just healed enough not to fear reopening the door for 5 minutes. I replied, "Okay, just a drop off." She showed up the next afternoon. She looked older, tired, but clearer, somehow, sober. Her hands trembled a bit when she passed me the container, pumpkin bread, her mom's recipe. "Thanks," I said, neutral. She lingered for a second. I could feel her wanting to step inside, to talk more, to poke around the edges of what used to be ours. "Can I just say something?" she asked. I nodded. "I know I don't have the right to expect anything, but I'm trying, Silas. I've been going to AA for 14 months. I even sponsor someone now. I know it doesn't erase what I did, but I wanted you to know. I remember who you are now. I was forgot for a long time. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't believe her, but because I did, and it still wasn't enough. I appreciate the honesty," I said, "and I hope you stay on that path. Truly." She smiled. Not the flirty kind. Not the smug kind. Just sad, but peaceful. Then she turned, walked back to her car, and drove away. That was the last time I saw her in person. Not long after that, something unexpected happened. My story, this one, basically got picked up for a short human interest segment on a regional news site. I hadn't submitted it. Someone from the community college had. Apparently, they'd been following my story since I graduated. It was just a 5-minute video clip, a quiet narration, some photos of me at work, a short soundbite about rebuilding, fatherhood, and what it means to start over in your 30s. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured a few people might see it. Maybe some other tired dads out there would feel seen. But then it caught fire, slowly at first, then fast. A local nonprofit reached out and asked if I'd be willing to mentor some high school kids who didn't have father figures. Then a podcast invited me to talk about recovery, not just from addiction, but from broken trust, broken marriages, broken dreams. The most surreal part? My inbox started filling up with messages from strangers. Some men, some women, all of them saying some version of, "I thought I was alone until I saw your story." It humbled me, shook me a little too. I never thought of myself as someone with a voice people needed to hear. I was just a guy who kept going when it would have been easier to give up. One night, I got a voicemail from a guy. "Hey, I saw the interview. You looked at peace. I'm glad you found that. I really am. And I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just want to say thank you for taking care of Marcus the way you have. I know I made things harder than they had to be. I'm working on forgiving myself. I hope one day you can too. Okay, bye." I didn't return the call. I didn't need to. See, the thing about forgiveness is, it doesn't always need to come with a conversation. Sometimes forgiveness is quiet. You just wake up one day and realize the grudge you were holding has turned to dust in your hands. I didn't need an apology from a bi to feel whole, but I appreciated that she gave it anyway. What mattered more was that I could look in a mirror and not flinch anymore. That I could walk into a room and not shrink. That I had a son who looked at me like I was the kind of man he wanted to become. That I was no longer defined by what I lost, but by what I chose to build day after day, even when it hurt. So when Marcus came home for winter break and asked if we could go out to eat, just the two of us, I said yes. We sat at a small diner, eating burgers, laughing about his awkward dorm roommate who never showered and always played music at 2 a.m. Then he leaned forward and said, "I know what you gave up for me, Dad. I know you didn't have to do any of it, but you did, and I'll never forget it." I just looked at him. My son, nearly grown, a good kid, a kind soul. "I didn't give anything up," I said. "I gave to something that mattered." He nodded, like he understood that deeper than I even meant it. And somewhere deep in my chest, something locked away for years finally let go. Not everything gets fixed. Not every relationship gets repaired. But some wounds close on their own when you stop picking at them. The best part is now I get to live in the present. Not the past. Not in regret. Not in revenge. Just in the quiet, steady rhythm of a life I earned. The last time a bi and I ever spoke was the following spring. I just come home from a speaking event, another panel about second chances, hosted by the local trade school. I wasn't paid. I didn't need to be. I said yes because every time I looked out a room full of young men who thought they'd already missed their shot, I saw myself. I got home, kicked off my boots, and saw a message from an unknown number. It was a voice memo. It was a bi. Her voice was calm, sober, and clear. "Hey, Silas. I promise this is the last time I'll reach out. I just wanted to let you know I'm moving. Out of state. New job. Clean slate. Marcus already knows. I didn't want to leave without saying something to you. Not because I expect anything, but because I finally understand the kind of pain I caused. You carried everything, and I never thanked you. Not really. I blamed you for my own mess. That's on me. But you turned it into something good, and that matters. That's all. I hope life gives you back everything you gave away." I sat with that for a while. Then I deleted the message. Not out of anger, but because I didn't need to keep holding on to the past. Not even the well-meaning parts of it. A bi left the state quietly. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't post about it. There was no closure meeting. No final conversation. She disappeared like a storm that had finally run out of sky. What remained was peace. A clean, earned kind of peace. It wasn't long after that Marcus called me from school with some news that made everything feel full circle. He got a job offer, an internship technically, but one that paid well and could lead to a full-time role after graduation. It was with a sustainable building firm, one that was doing work I used to only dream about being a part of. "Dad," he said, "I wouldn't have gotten this far without you." I told him the truth. "You would have. But I'm glad I was there to see it." Sometimes I look back and wonder how different things could have been. What if a bi had gotten help earlier? What if I'd spoken up sooner? What if I hadn't stayed silent for so long, trying to hold everything together by myself? But those thoughts don't last long, because I like the man I became through the fire. Not in spite of it, but because of it. I'm not a polished man. I'm not a guru or a life coach. I don't drive a fancy car or live in a magazine-ready home. But I'm whole. I sleep well. I laugh freely. I've got real friends. A partner who respects me. A son who trusts me. A life that fits. And if you had told me 4 years ago, when I was sleeping in my truck, wondering how to tell my son his college fund had vanished, that I'd end up here, I wouldn't have believed you. Back then, all I had was shame. Now, I have something much better. Not revenge. Not winning. Just a life that doesn't hurt anymore. Sometimes I get messages from people who've read or heard pieces of my story. They ask, how did you forgive her? How did you move on after something so big? And I always say the same thing. Forgiveness isn't pretending it didn't happen. It's deciding that it doesn't get to define you anymore. Abbai will always be part of my story. She was there when Marcus was born. She was there when we were kids, trying to be adults. She was there when I fell apart. But she doesn't get to own the ending. The ending belongs to the part of me that refused to stay broken. It belongs to the quiet mornings in my own place. To the late-night calls from my son, asking for advice on career paths. To the first time I stood in front of a classroom and someone saw me as more than a cautionary tale, but as a man who didn't quit. That's my ending. And if you're someone reading this, stuck in that place where everything feels like it's falling apart, just know this. You don't need revenge. You don't need to prove anyone wrong. You just need to keep building brick by brick. One day, you'll look up and realize you made it, and you never needed their approval to do it. Don't forget to subscribe for more confessions, more chaos, and more truth. Only on Ex-Confessions Unlocked.